Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Throne of Seal episode. So let's start. As the Holy War was on the verge of ending, her Demon Hunt Squad's captain Luke 11 had died in an enemy ambush, and her Demon Hunt Squad consequently dissolved. After the termination of the Holy War, the other members went off on their own way, returning to their temples. Only Lin Chen remained here, waiting for Lin Chen's return. Over these 4 years, she remained cultivating in the Mage Temple, accompanying Lin Chen to accomplish Lin Chen's filial duty. Lin Chen urged her many times, but she still did as she ought to, and never consented to leave. Lin Chen really loved dearly this girl who should originally be her granddaughter-in-law, but he felt that he couldn't be so selfish. Lin Chen had disappeared for over 4 years, appearing for the last time in the spiritual temple's Myriad Beast Mountain Pass. After having spent so long fighting in the depths of demon territory, the odds of survival were just far too low. Lin Chen had to admit that he didn't want to keep wasting Lin Chen's future like that. "Grandpa Lin, stop with that. I won't leave. I have to wait for him and Hao Chen. They will surely be back." Faint tears gushed out from Lin Chen's eyes. Even if she acted tough, she had a weak side deep inside. She obviously knew very clearly that the odds for Lin Chen and the others to be still alive were very low, but even if there were only small odds, that was at least some chance. As long as she didn't see their corpses, Lin Chen wouldn't admit their deaths. What a foolish girl you are. Okay, stay down here for now. After a few days pass, we will leave for the temple's great gathering, which takes place once in 10 years in Holy City. After it terminates, you will have to at least stop by home. You already know about the numerous letters your father has sent over there already. Lin Chen nodded silently. Right, even if she was resolute to wait for Lin Chen and Long Hao Chen here, she had to at least come by home sometime. Lin Chen smiled to her. "Shina, you have already broken through the 8th step, and have plenty of fighting experience. The dual swords your grandfather has called to be custom-made for you should arrive soon. After the temple's great gathering ends, do you feel confident in contesting a golden foundation armor from your Knight Temple?" Lin Chen was not the girl from back then anymore. After 4 years of single-minded cultivation, she broke through the bottlenecks of the 7th and 8th steps, becoming a powerhouse of the first rank of the 8th step. After surviving this holy war as a demon hunter, her cultivation had made considerable progress, and she was even a mithril foundation armor wearer already. Although the challenge for a golden foundation armor was still be difficult, Lin Chen had already ordered a pair of heavy swords of epic tier to be custom-made for her. That was using the riches Lin Chen had originally kept prepared for his only grandson, but Lin Chen having yet to return until now, these resources went instead for Lin Chen. The holy war of those years was a massive calamity for the Temple Alliance in that time. An incredible count of soldiers from the Temple Alliance had died during these 2 years of war in all temples included, but in the same way, the demon side suffered disastrous losses. For years had already passed since the end of the holy war. During this time, the several thousand years of accumulated superiority came on display. Although the steep decline in manpower was not an issue that could be resolved in a flash, the other aspects recovered very fast. In particular, after experiencing that holy war, the surviving powerhouses from all 6 great temples almost all experienced a qualitative rise in strength. Cases like Lin Chen were very frequent. After 2 years of holy war, and 4 years of stabilization, the number of powerhouses in the Temple Alliance was even higher than before the holy war. Only, there were far fewer ordinary soldiers than before. The temple's great gathering start was an event occurring once every 10 years. The 6 great temples' greatest powerhouses would assemble on this grand occasion to exchange blows while establishing new rankings. Almost all the higher-ups from the 6 great temples knew that this one great temple's gathering was really out of the ordinary. Being the first great temple's gathering since the end of the Holy War, it would not only create a brand new ranking, but moreover determine a lot of strategic policies. 2 years of holy war had enormously depleted the alliance, but the demon side also suffered a great loss of strength, and 2 demon god pillars were even destroyed. The Temple Alliance became like a sharp sword sharpened on the demons, which had grown incredibly in sharpness. The human side did not weaken on par with the demon god emperor's expectations, but became instead more and more prosperous every day. Although the Temple Alliance's side was still short compared to the global demon strength, this gap was not that wide anymore. If the younger generation that experienced the Holy War were to grow, it would be hard to say for how many years the demon side would be able to keep pressuring the Temple Alliance. For the sake of preserving the demon superiority, the demon god emperor threw himself onto the eastern side and southern sea. Although some magical beasts inhabited the sea, it was even more filled with food. Highly nutritive food was extremely important to raise the demon site's strength. Never had they been short of powerhouses, but they always had to plunder humans to gain pitiful amounts of food. So, shifting their site to the sea was an incomparable solution, as they had so much more to obtain in there. This matter was now under the responsibility of the moon demon god Agaz, proving the high importance attached by the demon god emperor onto it. The temple's great gathering was on the verge of starting, and that was not just simple battle, but the greatest grand occasion for the 6 great temples, a great contest in all kinds of aspects, to finally establish a final ranking of the great temples. Although such a contest couldn't possibly be 100% fair, the Temple Alliance having been developed for so many years, the utmost was already done to ensure the greatest fairness. Lin Chen would naturally be taking the arms on behalf of the Night Temple at that time. Hearing Lin Chen ask her how she felt about challenging a Golden Foundation armor, Lin Chen couldn't help but shake her head with a smile on her face. "Grandpa Lin, I'm still a ways behind. Talents came forth in large numbers in the Alliance, and so many young powerhouses have sprang out in our Night Temple. With the few Golden Foundation armors that are available, I don't want to fight for them. Let's discuss this after my strength becomes sufficient." Lin Chen responded proudly, "How could your strength be insufficient? After my Vulcan swords are completed for you, even challenging a junior powerhouse of the 9th step may not be impossible. I think that we should take advantage of this temple's great gathering to directly pick a Golden Foundation armor for you." Lin Chen stayed silent. Seeing the look on her face, Lin Chen naturally knew what she was thinking about. "Foolish girl, don't tell me you are still unwilling to accept it. You are not my granddaughter by blood, but in my eyes, you are far stronger than that little Lin Chen. To say nothing about his complete disappearance, even if he comes back alive, I don't have any assets to leave for this little bastard. If you still recognize this grandfather, stop rejecting me, or I am going to get angry. Don't tell me you want me to bring my things alongside in my coffin when I go. And since a night sword is already being made, what would I even keep it for?" Lin Chen eyes reddened. "Grandpa Lin, you're really so good to me." Lin Chen smiled in response. "Don't tell me you're not treating your grandfather just as well. Don't overthink it. Strive your best during this period to make a good show in the temple's great gathering. It's different from the different sessions because, due to the holy war of 4 years ago, I'm afraid that there will be many more variables. It is also a great chance for the Alliance." Lin Chen felt moved, nodding lightly. Lin Chen was a higher-up of the Mage Temple, but in the end, as she was from the Night Temple, there were many matters Lin Chen was not allowed to communicate to her. He could only give her obscure warnings, which was already sufficient given her intelligence. Holy City. There is a simple small wooden cabin, with all the chairs and tables inside made of the simplest wood. Only, this wooden material was very special, with beautiful wooden designs, and dispersing a faint flowery flavor. This heavenly incense wood was a very precious material. Its smell brought great benefits to the human body, extending one's life while having invigorating effects. In front of a simply designed wooden table a girl sat calmly. This girl was clad in a white skirt, and had pure and flawless looks. Only, traces of sadness were visible in her eyes. A pile of red splinters was visible on the wooden table in front of her. From the curves on those shards it was clear their shape had once been close to spherical. "It's been 4 years, you Baldai. What a bastard. Why aren't you giving me any news? The Scarlet Dragon bead has broken, so your Scarlet Dragon armor is already in pieces, but you know, I am still waiting for you. I believe that you must still be alive. You're still alive, right?" As she spoke so, a deep purple pearl appeared in her hand. This pearl dispersed a very special power, like faint coiling electricity. Although these fluctuations of spiritual energy were faint, that was still a fantastic phenomenon to behold. "It's been 4 years, and you're definitely still alive, but just where are you? Why are you still not coming back after so long? Don't you know how I—" At this point, tears flowed and splashed onto the table. In these past months, Holy City was especially lively, because the Great Alliance's gathering, which took place once every 10 years, was beginning soon. If the Demon Hunt competition was the grand occasion for the younger generation, the Temple's Great Gathering was the most important occasion for the whole Alliance. For the sake of this gathering, the 6 great temples had gathered the great majority of their powerhouses there, for the sake of having manpower ready for this Temple's Great Gathering. A lot of ordinarily secluded elder had come to Holy City one after another, and although there were still a few days left before the event, the Temple Alliance had meetings underway every day. The higher-ups of the 6 great temples unceasingly consulted each other, though the content of the discussion was a top secret only known to the top of the higher-ups. Any sharp person would realize that this gathering was different from all previous sessions. The atmosphere was also a lot more tense, as if something big was about to take place. In a silent room, two elders were seated in front of each other with stern looks on their faces, really making the atmosphere in the room stifling. Shockingly, the identities of these two decisive characters were of the two heads of the Night Temple, Yang Haohan and Long Qianying. Yang Haohan was not only a head of the Night Temple, but moreover the head of the Alliance. But of course, this position was already nearing the term of office limit. According to the rules of the Alliance, a head of the Alliance couldn't serve for another consecutive term of office. In other words, Yang Haohan inevitably needed to leave office. Brother Long, this one is left to you. Yang Haohan let out a long sigh, clearly sounding desolate. Long Qianying wrinkled his brows. The balance is bound to change. I'm afraid that our Night Temple is. Yang Haohan naturally knew what he was referring to, and forced a smile. So what's to be done about it? The temple that had the most outstanding emerging figures in the younger generation 10 years ago was our Night Temple. But in this holy war, we were also the ones who sustained the highest damage. Sinew is already back, but, for some reason, he was only willing to remain on guard in the dragon-resisting mountain pass, and nothing could convince him to participate in this gathering. Now we must trouble you. Long Qianying let out a cold snort. Don't mention this unfilial son. Showing such a gloomy face all the day, who knows what's going through his mind? Yang Haohan consoled him. Don't blame Xingyu. Haochen has been missing for so long, how could he not be worried? Mentioning Haochen, these two formidable divine knights couldn't help but became silent. Right, ever since Long Haochen brought Hanyu out from the dragon-resisting mountain pass, he had already been missing for over 4 years. The last time they had appeared was in the spiritual temple, and afterwards, they had had no more news. Long Qianying and Yang Haohan had already made secret inquiries to the spiritual temple regarding all this. Long Qianying suddenly slapped the table loudly, declaring remorsefully, "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have allowed him to reform his demon hunt squad. If he had remained in the dragon-resisting mountain pass, how could we possibly be reduced to such a passive state? For years ago, he had already broken through the 8th step. With these for more years, even the 9th step might not be out of his reach now. He's the Scion of Light, a god's chosen one. Even though his cultivation would still be rather weaker, with the approval of the divine throne of eternity and creation, this temple's great gathering would surely make him a great shining star. But now things are so awkward for the two of us." Yang Haohan's face darkened. This matter is still Wen Zhao's fault. If he hadn't gone to rescue him, they would not have gone missing. We have been doing all we could to look for traces of them, but we still didn't find anything. However, I still don't believe that they were truly done in by the demons. Long Qianying revealed a faint tint of sadness. Who would believe in that? The most outstanding talents from our Night Temple's younger generation are all gone. Now we are unable to even make ends meet. Recently, Li Zhengji has even clearly expressed his will to support the recombination of the 6 great temples, to end the current state of dispersion of the Alliance, unite us more closely, and make the Alliance a nation. This is clearly a provocation against us. Doesn't he simply want to be the first head of this new alliance? Yang Haohan declared, "This Li Zhengji is strong, but he has a very sinister and perverse character. Although he is behaving appropriately, he is actually extremely proud to the core. Having him rule over the Alliance won't be a lucky chance, but I'm afraid that we would hardly even be able to stop him unless those seniors from the title Demon Hunt Squad step in." Long Qianying shook his head. "That's impossible. These seniors have all clearly expressed their neutral standpoint on this temple's great gathering, and won't possibly take part. Humph, Li Zhengji. Let's see how much progress he has made over these past 10 years. He truly was a mighty experienced tiger." Right now, Long Qianying had an intense fighting intent rushing out from him. Yang Haohan declared, "No matter who the final head is, establishing a new alliance demands immediate action. The holy war from 4 years ago has certainly caused severe damage to us, but it has started a new era for us as well. If a charismatic leader can unite the whole alliance and its resources, I believe that our counterattack against the demons could start soon." Long Qianying nodded. "When we met with Xingyu yesterday, the Assassin Temple expressed supporting us wholeheartedly. I have also convinced Qiu Youhao on the matter, but since they are very close with the Mage Temple, I don't see much chance. The Priest Temple stands neutral so far, but now the greatest issue is the Spiritual Temple's attitude. Our chances would really increase greatly if they could support us." Yang Haohan responded, "I think we don't need to worry too much regarding our supporters. After all, we have already ruled over the Alliance for so many years already. We won't have any less support than the Mage Temple, but right now the most important is the result we will show in the Temple's Great Gathering. This is very important, as the resistance against demonkind entails an inevitable clash against the Demon God Emperor. Strength will be one of the most important factors of authority in the new alliance. Li Jingxi is really endowed in this aspect, especially after he has been bearing patiently over these past years. He clearly showed reserve at the Temple's Great Gathering from 10 years ago, since he didn't show an absolute certainty at that time. He is clearly really more provoking this time, meaning he really is determined to win. Old Long, don't be negligent, Li Jingxi is after all dominating in his age. I'm afraid that his internal spiritual energy has already broken through 200,000, or perhaps even higher. Long Qianying said, no matter the case, we have to give it a try. It won't be so easy for him to beat me. Yang Haohan said, there are 3 more days before the temple's great gathering starts. Let's go, we shall gather the elders from our night temple right now. Yeah. Long Qianying nodded, and the 2 powerhouses stood up at the same time, heading out. Right this instant, a vigorous sound came from outside. Chiefs, someone is requesting you. Yeah? Yang Haohan wrinkled his eyebrows. Who is it? He didn't say it, he just said he had something to give you. The voice reverberated from outside. Yang Haohan opened the door and came out, seeing a Mithril Foundation armored middle-aged knight stand respectfully in front of him, handing over an insignia held in both his hands. With a wave of Long Qianying's hand, that insignia came flying toward them. Yang Haohan then lifted his hand, catching the insignia inside. The 2 divine knights took the same action of looking at it without consulting. To the shock of that Mithril Foundation knight, the instant the gazes of these 2 divine knights gathered onto that insignia, they became simultaneously filled with shock. Looking at each other unconsciously, Yang Wenjiao and Long Qianying shouted at the same time at that Mithril Foundation knight, "Where's the owner of that insignia?" Headquarters of the Temple Alliance, in a secluded room of the Mage Temple. The chubby Li Jingxi sat calmly in the center of the room. A deep green glow surrounded him, not just his whole body but a lot of empty space as well, dispersing a metallic gloss. That was clearly a materialization of spiritual highland which looked close to a solidified state, giving off no illusory feel. Expelling a deep breath of air, Li Jingxi slowly opened his eyes, and a green electric light shot out from his eyes, shooting straight at the spiritual highland in front of him. _Ding _. The spiritual highland barrier shook lightly before turning into countless green dots of light. Li Jingxi took a deep breath of air, and, immediately, the green light disappeared, absorbed into his body. Reporting to Temple Head. The elders are waiting for you. A respectful call came from outside. Yeah. Li Jingxi gave a light reply, his body starting to float slowly. His feet landed on the ground, slowly coming out of the room. A middle-aged man clad in a green gown was waiting silently outside. Seeing Li Jingxi come out, he bowed his head immediately. The headquarters of the Alliance allocated 6 areas for the respective temples, so the Mage Temple naturally had their own one. After going through 2 alleys, the middle-aged mage brought Li Jingxi directly to a luxurious conference room. Although the Mage Temple was inferior to the Night Temple in status, their riches were something no other temple could compare to. Seeing Li Jingxi go in, everyone in the conference room straightened their posture. His figure shifting position, he appeared on the frontmost seat of the room. A total of 50 people were present inside, and although this was just a simple conference room, if a stranger were to be present here, he would be shocked to discover that the magic essence here was more dense than in the outside world by tenfold. Just a simple breath gave a feeling of stickiness. Without a doubt, these dense magic essences were brought by the people present inside. At least 80% of the mags present there had white hair and beards. They were clearly seated here for a long time, waiting for Li Jingxi to take charge of the meeting shortly. This bit made clear Li Jingxi's standing in the Mage Temple. When the other temples convened similar meetings, the temple head would normally not be the last one to arrive, out of respect for the elders from their respective temples. But Li Jingxi was clearly the last one to arrive, showing not only his personal disposition, but more importantly his authority in the Mage Temple. Sweeping his eyes over the rest of the assembly, he declared, "All of you elders, the temple's great gathering is about to start. According to reliable sources, this time the contestant from the side of the Night Temple will be Long Qianying. The Night Temple has been supporting the establishment of a new alliance, so let's encourage their plan, since there's no other way around it for now. I have always been against the establishment of this new alliance so far, not because I was against unifying the 6 Great Temples' forces, but because our Mage Temple still didn't have the strength to control it. But this temple's great gathering is not the same. I hope that each of you will support me in this unification. I don't wish to hear any unharmonious voice. To repel demonkind, the new alliance needs a sufficiently powerful and capable commander. This is a responsibility that cannot be passed to any others. The Night Temple is already getting aged, and I am confident in being able to lead a new holy war against demonkind. During my living years, I am resolved to command the alliance, and command humankind to retake our land. Li Jingxi's speed was very relaxed, but contained an unquestionable might. Hearing him, although some elders furrowed their brows or showed some dissatisfaction, most of the rest had fervent looks. The Mage Temple was so far always the number 2 of the alliance, having been suppressed for far too long by the Night Temple. That was because they hadn't had a Gen IOU's mage such as Li Jingxi, Wind Element Master Mage, who recently started to secretly change this situation. And now was finally the time to mobilize. How could they not get excited? Auxiliary Head Lin. Li Jingxi raised his head to look at the nearby Lin Chen. Lin Chen nodded to him. All the preparations are ready. Li Jingxi had a faint smile. All right, let's announce some candidates for the temple's great gathering next. The Night Temple and Mage Temple were not the only ones to convene meetings. The other temples also convened similar meetings. The establishment of a new alliance was imminent. The higher-ups from the 6 great temples were acting exactly as though authority over the new temple alliance was a prize to be won. The atmosphere in the warrior temple's gathering was a lot more relaxed than the Mage Temple. Qiu Yonghao was seated on the main seat, and a total of more than 30 elders were reunited inside of the warrior temple. Okay, let's settle things this way. We are giving our full support to the Mage Temple. Li Jingxi has already given us his promise to give the warrior temple an important status after a new alliance is established. I have already prepared most arrangements. Do you have some more suggestions? This meeting will be the last one before the temple's great gathering starts. If anyone has any objection, raise it right now, otherwise, I will take it that we are all agreed to move as one. There had already been a lot of meetings in the warrior temple, and the objections and suggestions were raised since long before. Right now, Qiu Yonghao made the elders from the warrior temple nod in succession, expressing their final words of approval. Right at this time, an abrupt objection broke the harmony in the room. I have an objection. This declaration was really just too sudden, and was formulated by an illusory figure, appearing without warning beside the warrior temple's head. Qiu Yonghao, a warrior appearing from nowhere clad in full silver body armor. The elders present were all startled. No one had expected someone to actually dare stir up trouble in a meeting between the elders, let alone using an ability similar to teleportation. Qiu Yonghao was also greatly startled, but responded fast. He was fully certain that this person was none of the elders from the warrior temple, yet that person appeared right beside him, bringing a terrifying feeling of might to the whole assembly. Almost unconsciously, Qiu Yonghao riposted with his left hand, striking straight on the chest of the silver-armored warrior that had just appeared. This punch was not to be underestimated. That strike drew in the air within a meter's range, briefly covering that area in a near vacuum, and locked that silver-armored warrior in place, removing any avenue of escape. As a powerhouse of the 9th step, Qiu Yonghao had made huge progress thanks to the sword intent that Long Haochen had left behind. His move combined a great skill with great simplicity. That silver-armored warrior didn't even avoid it, but confronted Qiu Yonghao's punch, aiming a punch too. Her hand wrapped in silverlight met Qiu Yonghao's hand as well. When the two parties struck each other, a fantastic scene came to sight. Qiu Yonghao's body trembled slightly, repelled 1/3 of a meter back. That silver-armored warrior's shoulders swayed, drawing backward immediately. The miraculous thing was that even a clash at their level of power did not let out any leak of spiritual energy nor any huge explosion. After the two punches collided, no other changes followed. For a moment, the elders of the warrior temple all had shocked faces, flashing out to surround that silver-armored warrior at once. The most shocked was naturally Qiu Yonghao himself, who couldn't possibly annihilate any leak of spiritual energy. This was done by this silver-armored warrior. It looked like the opponent suffered a loss in the exchange, but she had still annihilated all his spiritual energy, using the spatial attribute to cause it to vanish. There's no way this warrior's cultivation could be inferior to his. And furthermore, he was able to feel that the opponent had no ill intent from this exchange of blows. Qiu Yonghao raised his hand, planning to block the warrior temple's elders present. Straightening his posture, he questioningly looked at the other warrior, having felt a kind of clear sense of familiarity in the previous clash. Who are you? Qiu Yonghao asked in a grave tone. The silver-armored warrior did not remove the equipped helmet, but calmly stood there without movement. However, the perspicacious people were able to see Qiu Yonghao's ear fluttering lightly, clearly from a sound transmission by this silver-armored warrior. Hearing this uninvited guest sound transmission, Qiu Yonghao's expression of shock intensified greatly. He suddenly waved his hand to the elders. The meeting is to be temporarily paused. I have a matter to talk with this warrior about. Everyone head back first, this matter needs to be kept strictly confidential. Saying that, he nodded to that silver-armored warrior and headed out with large strides. This suddenness shocked all the higher-ups of the warrior temple present here. From that armor, she really was a warrior, but was only slightly disadvantaged against Qiu Yonghao's blow, and moreover, she was clearly a master at using spatial abilities with great suddenness. For a moment, none of them were able to recall when such a powerful warrior could have risen up in their temple, and moreover, at the time she interrupted Qiu Yonghao, it could be heard from her voice that that was a girl. The silver-armored warrior followed Qiu Yonghao to a private room inside the warrior temple's quarters of the Alliance. Qiu Yonghao closed the door, and a golden light dispersed from his body, condensing to form metallic lustres that covered every corner of the room. Using spiritual Highland to shut every possible awareness out of this room was only achievable by a powerhouse of Qiu Yonghao's level. Yuan, is it really you? After Qiu Yonghao's use of spiritual Highland completed, he asked this with great impatience. Taking off her helmet, the silver warrior revealed a face of great beauty, with a look filled with great determination and calm, when Yuan reports to temple head. Right, the one who had suddenly broken inside the warrior temple's meeting and interrupted Qiu Yonghao was Yuan, who was supposedly missing for over 4 years. Although Qiu Yonghao became aware of her identity with the previous sound transmission, recognizing Yuan's face still caused his body to shake in terrible excitement. Yuan, you are finally back. Just where were you during these 4 years? Originally, Qiu Yonghao had felt unwell for a very long time after learning about Yuan's disappearance alongside Long Haochen. Not only was she one of their people, but moreover she had a great talent and temperament. During the Holy War, when Yuan had gained herself the title of Bloody Goddess of War, some of the powerhouses of the Ninth Step hadn't even necessarily contributed in the war as much as her. In the southeastern fort, the Bloody Goddess remained for a long while. At that time, Qiu Yonghao had already decided to train her well, and even prepare her as his future successor. Maybe Yuan's talent was not comparable to Long Haochen's, but Qiu Yonghao could tell that she was incomparably resolute, and had an unwavering willpower. Such a determination would hardly be found in men, yet was found in Yuan. But regrettably, Yuan had followed Long Haochen in departing from southeastern fort without any second thoughts, rejecting all Qiu Yonghao's recommendations. Afterwards, no other news came of her. Qiu Yonghao had even obtained the information that Yuan was not the only one to have gone missing, but that the same went for their whole demon hunt squad. This matter had shocked the highest higher-ups of the Temple Alliance for a very long time. After all, Long Haochen's existence was really extraordinary in itself. The Alliance's head Yang Haohan was greatly criticized for this matter by the other temple's heads, who condemned his decision of letting Long Haochen reform his demon hunt squad. No one thought that after 4 years passed, Yuan would actually be back, and that her strength would actually progress to such an extent in 4 short years. Bowing deferentially, Yuan's eyes dispersed a dazzling brilliance. Head, I'm not the only one to be back. All my comrades are also back. Qiu Yonghao became greatly surprised once again. Are you saying that Long Haochen and the others? Yuan nodded. Captain gave me a message to pass to temple head. With our status as a titled demon hunt squad, we want to challenge this temple's great gathering. If we manage to show a sufficient performance, we hope to gain the warrior temple's support, and yours as well. Qiu Yonghao was slightly shocked. Are you saying that you want to take part as a titled demon hunt squad? Yuan replied, according to the rules of the temple's great gathering, titled demon hunt squads, being groups that made extraordinary contributions, are qualified to participate independently in the temple's great gathering and gain full credits. If they can finish with a rank in the top 3, they will be qualified to make the Alliance accept one of their terms. Qiu Yonghao wrinkled her eyebrows. Yuan, you have been gone for so long, but want to directly take part in the temple's great gathering right after returning. Don't you know that this temple's great gathering has a very special meaning? Just what is Long Haochen planning? He understood very clearly that Long Haochen was the true core of bright glimmer of hope. Yuan smiled back. It is right, because this temple's great gathering is really extraordinary that we want to take part. Head Qiu, are you willing to support us? Xiao Yonghao declared, since you have all come to take part in the gathering, you should be aware of all the rules for the gathering. Even if you are a titled Demon Hunt Squad, it is nearly impossible for your team to be strong enough to prove itself. Making it to the top 3 is all the more impossible. Long Haochen may have the Warrior Temple's favor, but you are really making trouble on this one. I cannot support you by any means, and won't give you any commitment. I am saying this on behalf of the Warrior Temple. Wang Yuanyuan's eyes flashed radiantly. Then, what if we can take the first place? If we place above all 6 great temples, would you be willing to support us? Xiao Yonghao was greatly shocked by hearing these words come out from Wang Yuanyuan's mouth with such an extreme confidence. He had just gotten to try out Wang Yuanyuan's strength, and had been able to determine, with just a simple contact, that she should have already broken through the 9th step. Thinking of that, he couldn't help but show great alarm. Right, Wang Yuanyuan was just the warrior of the Bright Glimmer of Hope Demon Hunt Squad. Her cultivation having already attained the 9th step, what level could Long Haochen's cultivation have attained? And moreover, they had previously destroyed demon god pillars. At this point, Xiao Yonghao's look warmed up greatly. Yuanyuan, just what are you guys trying to do? What are your goals? Head, we have only one goal. That's to lead humankind to defeat demonkind. Xiao Yonghao shook his head. This is such an important topic and you broach it so suddenly. I am at a loss for how to even respond to you. Wang Yuanyuan nodded and replied, let it be then. I believe that Captain will have the ability to convince you, as well as the higher-ups of all the other 6 great temples. At the present time, strength is the most important factor in the resistance against demonkind. I am going, please keep secret the matter of our return. Xiao Yonghao responded, Yuanyuan, don't look down on the temple's great gathering. Maybe you made huge progresses in strength, but the trump cards of the temples aren't something a demon hunt squad such as yours can resist. Wang Yuanyuan only smiled in response. I think that you will be very pleasantly surprised. Xiao Yonghao had a bitter smile. Actually, I don't want this pleasant surprise, because that would be even harder for me to accept. Although I don't believe you can win, if you can really manage this feat, our warrior temple will at least promise to be neutral. Wang Yuanyuan had a look of surprise. She was originally planning only to greet Xiao Yonghao and leave him with a deep impression before the start of the temple's great gathering. But she did not expect him to express his neutrality. The warrior temple being a faithful supporter of the Mage Temple, their neutral standpoint was extremely important in Long Haochen's plans. As the head of the warrior temple, Yonghao was optimistic that Bright Glimmer of Hope wouldn't insist on recalling the favor Long Haochen formerly did the warrior temple. Individual favor was one thing, but a temple's benefit was another. His expression of neutrality was already a token of his support regarding Bright Glimmer of Hope. How old was Wang Yuanyuan this year? Below 30. For how long had the warrior temple not gotten a powerhouse of the 9th step under 30 years old of age? And not only the warrior temple, the whole alliance had not gotten such a young powerhouse for a really long time. Furthermore, he determined from Wang Yuanyuan's speech that she was absolutely not the only one to have attained the 9th step in Bright Glimmer of Hope. Their confidence in participating in the temple's great gathering as a demon hunt squad already resolved a lot of mysteries. Long Haochen being such an earth-shattering genius, now that they were back after disappearing for over 4 years, their talents as well as their young ages foretold their future positions of cornerstones of the 6 great temples with certainty. The initiative of the warrior temple was a head start for preparing future scenarios. Yet Xiao Yonghao didn't believe in the slightest that Bright Glimmer of Hope would make any showing in this temple's great gathering. Since things were like that, what's the deal with a little promise? A fierce argument was taking place in the meeting taking place in the Assassin Temple. Head Xingyu, I don't believe that we should still wholeheartedly support the Night Temple. Don't tell me you cannot tell that the Night Temple is already in decline. The one speaking was an elder with a slim build, an aged face covered with wrinkles, and a bald head. No matter how one looked, he already looked like someone with one foot in the grave, who'd just fall over in front of a blowing gust. But his sharp look was as sharp and ice-cold as an eagle, visibly extremely resentful. Since 10 years ago, the Night Temple has not produced any new divine knights. Of their 3 divine knights, Yang Wenjiao will be unable to participate in this one due to being the present alliance's head. Long Xingyu has not even come, and what can just Long Qianying alone do? This temple's great gathering is really special and will determine the future path of the alliance. Standing on the wrong side will very possibly cause a decline of the alliance and greatly lower our position in the future alliance. Although we also cannot take the exact opposite stance by supporting the Mage Temple, we should at least stay neutral and stop keeping the same position as in the past. Don't look down on this thin-looking elder. His speech shook the whole conference room immediately. Sheng Yu sat on the first seat and had a really heavy look. This was far from the only one of the elders from the Assassin Temple to raise an objection. He may be the head of the Assassin Temple, but these elders from their temple were far more influential than the ones from other temples, especially this one who just made his speech. That was the chief elder of the Assassin Temple, Ling, the most senior, and one generation older than Sheng Yu, as well as being the representative of the oldest generation of the Assassin Temple. In strength, he was in the top tier of the Assassin Temple, reaching the second rank of the 9th step, and was close to the 3rd rank. Calling him the cornerstone of the Assassin Temple would be no exaggeration, and as the chief elder, plenty of people supported him. Right now, the expression of his point of view created a total plot shift in this conference. The higher-ups and greatest elders from the Assassin Temple made up a total of 41 people, and at least half of them were swayed. Another elder continued, "Old Shui is right. Our damage was very great in this holy war 4 years ago, and the same goes for the Night Temple. After such a long time, the Mage Temple and Spiritual Temple having sustained the least damage, their rise in power has been the quickest. And in this alliance's great gathering, I don't think they will be able to defend their crown. We must discard this alliance, or else how will the other temples view us after the birth of the new alliance? We will not only lose a powerful ally, but moreover we will become despised by all the other temples. From another point of view, if the Night Temple hadn't assisted us so wholeheartedly, how long do you think we would have lasted in the Holy War? Do you know how many souls of the loyal knights have been left in our walls? Don't tell me you want to abandon our benefactor like that. I have already decided that no matter whether the Night Temple finally defends their crown or not, our Assassin Temple will keep supporting them with its all. Even if the Night Temple finally loses, we will at least stand in solidarity. Demonkind is our target, not internal strife. I believe whoever rules over the new alliance, they won't excessively oppress the other temples." This was not the first time Sheng Yu had spoken these words, but the Assassin Temple still had yet to come to a unanimous reply. The temple's great gathering was nearing, so the choice of the Assassin Temple couldn't keep being delayed. They had to come to a final decision on this day, but the sound of opposition was still just as high. Of the 6 great temples, the one with the least control was, without a doubt, Sheng Yu. That was due to historical reasons. After all, his teacher who used to be the previous head of the Assassin Temple had already, before dying many years ago, been contesting against Shui Jisheng. The competitiveness between these two elders was very intense, and their gap in strength, very little. Now that Sheng Yu had lost his teacher's support, his standing in the Assassin Temple was naturally not that great any longer. This was also why he had to ruthlessly make Cair integrate with the spiritual stove of Samsara back in those years. He hoped for his granddaughter to not become like him at the time when she would control the Assassin Temple. As the chief of the elders group, Shui Zixing suggested, "Since you are so obstinate, let us decide by vote then. As the temple head, your vote can count thrice, while mine as the chief of the elders can count twice. The minority shall follow the majority, so we will come to a conclusion today." Hearing all this, Sheng Yu felt his heart tighten. He understood that since Shui Jisheng was suggesting such a course of action, he was already fully confident in having the large majority here supporting him. In case this decision came through, even the head of the Assassin Temple wouldn't be able to do anything about it, and this would also greatly damage his future authority as well. Since things had come to this, Sheng Yu was already unable to stop the voting taking place in front of him. Out of rage, he clenched his hands tightly, looking grudgingly at Shui Jisheng. The gloomy and cold-eyed Jisheng gave no leeway. Despite growing very old, his authority in the Assassin Temple was still really massive. This video will end here.